How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Family. We are back with another FPL video, and today we're going to be taking a look at what my predictions were for the Premier League season that has just concluded, the 21-22 Premier League season. We're going to take a look at what my picks were for all the different places, from first all the way down to 20th. We're going to see who I predicted for the sacked manager, relegation points tally, conference winners, FA Cup winners, Champions League winners, all that sort of stuff. And I have a sneaking suspicion I probably got most of that wrong, but we'll see. It's all in good fun. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe channel if you're new or haven't done so already. It greatly helps out the channel, as well as turn those notification bells on so you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Also, drop us a follow over on Twitter so you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news, from price changes to injury news and anything in between for FPL coming in the new season, as well as give us a follow over on Twitch. You can join us live for whenever FPL does go live. We will go live over on Twitch, so make sure to follow us for that, as well as for the FPL winner of the Cup, for the Flames Recruits League Cup, as well as the winner of the league itself. I think I came second, or was very close to second, something like that. I will announce those when FPL goes live, basically, or at least around that time. I haven't forgot about it. I'm going to do it closer to when the season is going to start, and then the names will be put into the description of every video, which is always nice to see. But yeah, without further ado, let's talk about our partners for this video with Manscaped. This video is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped have just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, alongside their Performance Package 4.0, which also includes the Weed Whacker hair and nose trimmer for those pesky little hairs that are getting out of hand, the Crop Preserver for anti-chafing to make sure that you are as relaxed at all times, the Crop Reviver for maximum conditioning and toning to make sure your jewels are as buff as possible, disposable shaving mats, as well as the premier travel bag for your on-the-go grooming, and lastly the anti-chafing boxers, which I can personally say are extremely comfortable and keep you cool under the highest amount of pressure. What I found the most impressive is that the Lawnmower 4.0 features ceramic cutting-edge blades to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology, so you can now have that added security when venturing into uncharted territories. The upgraded trimmer also includes a multi-function on and off switch that can engage a travel lock, and also when you are venturing into those uncharted territories, it has the ability for a LED, a 400K LED, a very strong light that you can switch on and off so you can get that more precise shave. So make sure to join over 4 million men who trust in Manscaped with this exclusive offer: 20% off and free worldwide shipping using the code FLAME20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code FLAME20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Okay, so let's check out what I predicted for this season. We did a bunch of different things, you know. We got 20th through 1st. We also talked about all the cups, first manager stacked, you know, relegation points tally, all that sort of stuff. So let's start off with 20th and see who I predicted to get relegated rock bottom of the Premier League. I'm going to start off, where should we start? Let's start with relegation, I believe. Okay. So I'm going to start off with 20th place. So there's a few clubs that probably fall into this category, but I think that Norwich is probably going to be the one to come 20th, or at least in the bottom 3, but I've gone with them to be 20th. And we got that exactly right. Norwich was bottom of the table. They were not very good at all. They lost Buendia, which I mentioned in the video as well. And I think that just Norwich, I think it was one of their directors or their CEO or whoever it was like, as long as we're basically 23rd best in all of the English like tier, then we're fine, because they'll keep going from getting relegated bottom into at least getting promoted again. So I think that's kind of a weird way to kind of, you know, work things, but it was kind of predicted basically. I think a lot of people who did do these sorts of predictions predicted Norwich would be in the bottom, pretty much guaranteed for the most part at least. So let's see who we predicted at 19th. Looking at them saying, yeah, they're definitely going to be staying up. In 19th place, we're actually going to go with Southampton. Now, Southampton's been in the Premier League for quite some time. They have the likes of James Ward-Prowse and Danny Ings last season, Vestergaard. But all those players could be leaving, basically. Danny Ings has already left to Aston Villa, as well as Vestergaard has left to Leicester for £15 million, which is extremely cheap, a great deal there. And was a bit wrong on that one. Vestergaard did pick up a serious injury, which left him out of the season for quite a bit, actually. And it was a bit weird because he was seen as potentially like coming in and playing, like more of a back three, being more the set piece dominant threat. He would have definitely helped Leicester out on set pieces for sure. But Southampton, they lost all those players and then they recruited well. They bought in the likes of Armando Broja and Livramento, both from Chelsea. One was on a permanent in Livramento's case and one was on a loan in Armando Broja's case. And they did okay. They kind of got to like 40 points and they kind of just sat there and waned. They could be in the battle for relegation again next season if they aren't careful. I think Hasenhüttl's style of play is quite dangerous and can be quite open. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. So let's see who I put basically just barely not making it out and safe in the Premier League. It was around the 4-minute 50 mark. One that unfortunately miss out from the Premier League teams, which leaves 18th. So I'm going to go with Watford. I think Watford are going to be the team that are going to be just one place off, so we'll take that. Going to be able to not make it to stay in the Premier League. And actually, I have kind of two. This is kind of cheating a little bit for the first manager sacked, but I'll put one over the other. If I had to choose, I think Watford's manager is probably the more likely to be sacked. The other manager who I was thinking was Arteta, and it was a real threat potentially because I did this video the day of Arsenal and Brentford playing on opening day. I planned to do it earlier, but wasn't able to. And seeing that, maybe I would have put Arsenal lower or something like that. And they also did lose their first 3 games of the season. But Watford's managers, I mean, they get changed all the time. It's a really, really tough job. The ownership I don't know what they're doing. Basically, they change managers so quickly. They recruit wrong in that sense. They had about 55 forwards, which I mentioned in the video as well, and it just didn't help them. They couldn't score goals. They couldn't keep solid at the back. Yes, there were times where they beat teams when they shouldn't have, or beat teams that you wouldn't think they would beat, like Man United. They took 4 points off Man United this season. They beat them 4-1, and I think they drew 1-1 at Old Trafford or something crazy like that. But yeah, one place off there. Got 2 out of the 3 relegated teams correct. And the first manager sack correct, but I think it goes downhill from here. But I mentioned something about points tallies around the 5-minute 40 marks. Let's see what Troy Deeney. They have some players in there that could do well. I think they'll just barely miss out. I think the relegation battle is going to be a lot stronger than what it was last season. Okay. So you're going to probably see a lot more points needed to stay out of the relegation zone. So yeah, we got that one right as well, because in the 2021 season, I think it was Fulham who finished 18th. They only had about 28 points, and the team in 17th, it was quite comfortable. It was pretty much settled for the most part going into the last couple of games, whereas this one, Burnley and Leeds, were going into the last day knowing that they needed to basically win. Their jobs effectively were on the line, and pay cuts could happen if they get relegated. Burnley didn't win. Leeds did. Congratulations to Leeds. Commiserations to Burnley. Could be bad for Burnley because they might not come back up to the Premier League for a long time, and it could be a bit of a downfall for them. Sometimes sacking your manager who's been there for you for, I think Sean Dyche was there for like 10 years or something, isn't always the best thing to do. Sometimes you just have to stick it out. If they get relegated, then you sack him afterwards. But they had a little bit of a spell, but I think Sean Dyche might have been able to pull him out of it. He's been in that situation before. He may have got the results too, but maybe slightly one-up Leeds on that one. But the points tally was a lot more this season. It was around 35, 36 points, if I remember correctly. I think it was Burnley at 35, so you only needed the 36 to get out of there. But that's a big points difference. Almost 3 wins worth of points with the 8 points difference between 28 and 36. So, yeah, I would say that it definitely improved. I would say the quality of the Premier League in terms of the teams fighting down the bottom didn't necessarily change. It's just the points dropped, I think, by other teams was a bit more than what we would probably expected. I mean, these guys, they've been playing football without fans. They've been playing football nonstop to catch up. So could be a bit of that maybe. And with no competition in the summer, it's going to be, obviously, the World Cup is in November, December. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of how that plays out and how it affects FPL as well. Who knows what they're going to do for that. But let's move on to who I predicted to be in 17th, around just before the 7-minute mark. Old-fashioned 4-4-2 English football.
So I predicted
Burnley.
Okay.
I think Burnley is the team that is going to keep them out. Sean Dyche just seems to, no matter how many signings they get, no matter how many players leave, no matter how many players come back in, they always seem to get the job done. And I think that Burnley, they're kind of like the Premier League version of Millwall in a sense. Very tough to play against. You never like to go to their home ground.
Fair point.
It's always a slog, and they just get the job done when they need it. And I think Sean Dyche, if he wasn't their manager, he wasn't their manager, unfortunately. He did get sacked. Burnley just barely not getting enough on the final day to surpass Leeds. If they would have won that game, again, it was tough opposition in Newcastle. If they win that game, they guaranteed themselves safety. Unfortunately, did not. So again, still one place off. Still a good guess there. Let's see who we predicted in 16th. Brentford. I think Brentford, they play a very good attacking style of football.
Brentford.
Obviously, they won tonight versus Arsenal. But I think out of all the three teams that have come up, they have the best system for players that they're bringing in. Onyeka was obviously fantastic tonight, and we talked about him in our preseason watch as well. Ivan Toney, someone who is just a monster versus just any defense, basically.
Sure.
They have, from what we saw tonight, the long throw and the kind of Stoke approach. They can do that. On set pieces, they're always going to be a threat. Their goalkeeper, Raya, made a few good saves, and he was good in the championship as well. And I just think Brentford, the way they buy, the way they invest in players, the way they scout players, I just think it's just a very, very good system, and will keep them ticking over probably for a few Premier League seasons. And we'll see if they end up getting second season syndrome. It's one of those things that kind of creeps up on teams sometimes. They get all this adrenaline going into their first season in the Premier League, do well, and then the next season they have no energy basically to carry themselves over. But they did recruit well. Eriksson helped Brentford massively, and I think that Ivan Toney and Mbomo struck up a good partnership, all things considered, for a team that only had a net spend of, I think, £10 million. So I think that wasn't a bad shout. Brentford actually did end up finishing slightly higher than I would have even expected. I'm just checking the table now. I want to say they finished like 13th or 14th, something like that. They did really, really well. Yeah, 13th on 46 points. So I think that Brentford, if they can hold that position, that would be stellar for them, to be honest. Especially with that net spend. Eriksson being re-signed would be a very, very big boost for them. So we'll have to see kind of how that one goes. Let's check on 15th and 14th. My cheat sheet here. This was one of the teams that I swapped around, actually. I'm going to put Crystal Palace in 15th. And I swapped them with Newcastle, which I'll put in 14th. So we'll talk about them.
Okay, so I have those two
different kind of tandem. Different. I think Crystal Palace have made some smart buys. I think Elise could be fantastic. I think Patrick Vieira's come in. Give them a bit of youthfulness. Looking for the younger players. They're going to have two very young center backs, Joachim Andersen being one of those who played in the Premier League last season with Fulham, and he looked fantastic. They're also potentially in talks with loaning Amad Diallo from Man United. He could be great for them out on the wing, as well as they did lose Andros Townsend to Everton. So they did end up getting a very, very young squad. Patrick Vieira was kind of criticized for his lack of playing style and also his kind of downfall in Ligue 1 over when he coached for the season over there. Just they really didn't take to him. It was, I guess he was a bit too aggressive or something like that. And he came into a team that had a lot of young players that are looking up to him as potentially an idol, especially the likes of Conor Gallagher, maybe. He would have seen Patrick Vieira playing when he was fairly young as well, or would have known about Patrick Vieira, that he was an idol of the game, and would have tried to learn from him as well. Eze had come off a long-term injury, came back. He looked really good. Elise was fantastic. Edouard's been, pretty decent throughout the season as well. Crystal Palace's defense has definitely gotten better as well, and they've lowered the overall, the average age of the team significantly. So I think Palace did quite well. They ended up actually on 12, so it was a few places off that. And I think they could go from strength to strength. A couple, key buys here and there, and they can look to get themselves into the top 10 next season. Be very interested to see what their transfer strategy is. They're looking potentially at Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Does that really help them when they want to play front foot? I'm not too sure. I mean, as a United fan, I hope they buy him. But I think that they potentially look to have the ball a lot more. And then also a goalkeeper as well. A goalkeeper is going to be big for them, especially one that can play out from the back. That would probably help elevate them quite a bit. Let's see what I say about Newcastle. Definitely a big miss. And I think that it could be a bit of a rough ride at the start, but I think they'll pick it up and they should be quite comfortable by the end of the season. And then on next season, hopefully they can kick on and get a few more younger players, and then they can go forward there as well. That was about Palace. In 14th is Newcastle. They got their main player, their main man back from the end of last season in Joe Willock. He's come in on a permanent basis, £25 million. I think that's a very good deal. I think he's the one in FPL terms. $6 million, definitely be to watch out for him. But if they can keep St. Maximin and Wilson fit, they should be more than fine. I've put them in at 14th because I think both of them will get injured at some point. For how long, we don't know. And just on that, they did end up getting injured during Steve Bruce's tenure, who ultimately was sacked, replaced by Eddie Howe, and then the new ownership came in as well. Helped them in the transfer window. I think people are potentially blowing up the situation a bit too much in terms of, they had all this money and they helped them a lot. Chris Wood only scored one goal. Kieran Trippier was available for 2 games. Yes, he was good in those 2 games, but it was just 2 games. It was Dan Burn and Bruno Guimaraes, which was around £50 million, which, you can expect to back a new manager that's come in on short notice. He definitely needed a midfielder. Bruno Guimaraes was fantastic, and needed a center back. Those two were key positions. And also, Eddie Howe is the only manager to ever have come in to a team that had lost 14 or hadn't won one of the first 14 games, no wins in the first 14, and kept the team up. And they did more than that. They came 11th, which is fantastic. I think if the season had started when Eddie Howe had come in, they would have got 4th or 5th, which is just crazy to think about. They will reinvest. The owners are going to do smart business, I think. They're not going to do it kind of like how Man City did, where they went for the Robinhos and all these fancy names. They're going to build it up slowly over time. Callum Wilson and St. Maximin do get injured quite frequently, or seem to be missing in action quite a lot. Callum Wilson through injury, St. Maximin due to just kind of peaks and troughs in form, as well as injuries as well. So I think they need some potential attacking reinforcement. And I think that, with Kieran Trippier next season in there as well, maybe a new goalkeeper, Dean Henderson's being touted there, they could be even better. And I think a fantastic finish for them would be in the Europa Conference League spot. I think 7th would be absolutely crazy for them. The amount of years that Newcastle have been out of European places is mind-boggling, and seeing them back there and then potentially back in the top 4. Teams above them like Arsenal, Spurs, United, if they don't get their act together, I mean, Spurs have come 4th this season, but they could be looking at Newcastle challenging for that spot as well, which is probably why all these teams wanted more and more places in the Champions League so that they can all get in there, which would be interesting to see. So, yeah, with that being said, predictions have gone well so far. Just a kind of small recap. Burnley and Watford. Watford 1 place off, Burnley 1 place off, Norwich 1 place off, Brentford a couple, Crystal Palace a couple, Newcastle a couple, but got them in the right order though, which is in terms of highest to lowest. So let's move further up. Let's see how we did for 13th, which is around the 11:30 mark. That was mainly due to the fact that Joe Willock came in for them as well. Looking over at the cheat sheet here, I think in 13th, unlucky 13, is going to be Wolves. I think Wolves probably going to be a little bit rough off the start, much like Palace, trying to implement a new system. But I think that overall they're going to be quite good. Raul Jimenez looks very good in the preseason games. Apparently he has no fear in terms of going up to head the ball, because obviously he had that horrific head injury. And I think that Wolves could do quite well. They're going to get burnt on the break by a few teams. They'll probably play against the Uniteds, the Leicesters, Man Cities, Liverpool's, and they'll probably get beaten quite heavily. And sometimes they got beaten pretty convincingly, whether it was by a decent-sized scoreline or not. Wolves are a weird team. Raul Jimenez did look decent in kind of the preseason, but again, that's just preseason. Doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot when you've come off that serious of an injury. When it comes to that 50-50 ball in a real, kind of scenario when it's for the league, then issues might arise. Raul Jimenez is not the same player he was before that hand injury. They need to reinforce there. They also need to reinforce at center back as well. I think Jose Sá was a good player for them this season, but I just think that Wolves they could have been better. I mean, they came 10th, which is a decent enough place, but I mean, a couple seasons ago, they were 8th, 7th place constantly and comfortably in those spots. So they kind of slipped down a little bit. Bruno Lage kind of apparently had a bust up with some of the players. I'm not sure how that situation is going to be, but he wanted to play a back four. Let's see if he's able to get those players. I'm still kind of, I think that prediction was, okay. Again, only 3 places off or thereabouts. I think that Wolves are going to be very, very interesting to see, because if they go for a back four, then it's going to be a different Wolves team, which could either catch teams by surprise or could cause Wolves to get burnt even more by some of the teams that are very good at opening up defenses, because Wolves have been known to be this really solid, compact, play a back five, very defensive team and hit on the break. They try to go more front foot and they're not used to it, then they don't necessarily know how to defend with a back four as well, or players are more accustomed to having that extra man there. They could see a bit of a drop off and could be in a sticky situation, but we'll hold our judgment for that. Let's move on to 12th. I've put them here at 13th. Moving on to 12th, a team that was down in the dumps, but their stats were quite high. I'm going to put Brighton in 12th place. I just think that defensively, their system is very good. They have a very good goalkeeper in Robert Sanchez. The only problem with them is their goals up front. So I think some games they'll be able to nick clean sheets or maybe nick 1-1s, get themselves a draw. Whereas the likes of Wolves and Palace and and Newcastle and Brentford, I think defensively there's still potentially some questions there. Whereas Brighton, I think if they get, which they should probably address by the end of the window, someone who can play up top for them, it'd be brilliant if they got Tammy Abraham. Now, I remember as FPL managers, we were thinking about that too. If they got Tammy Abraham, who I think was like 6.5, 7 million in FPL at the time, he could have been really, really good for Brighton as well. And he showed that he was quite good in Serie A this season as well. Tammy Abraham's still young as well, right? So that's one thing to also consider. But again, Brighton still 3 places off, but in still the correct order. Brighton did finish ahead of Wolves, who finished ahead of Newcastle, who finished ahead of Crystal Palace, so on and so forth. So we are getting kind of the structure right. There are some few howlers coming up soon, but yeah, at least the structure was right for the lower part. And I still think Brighton are in the same situation. They need to get someone who can score 15 Premier League goals a season, and they will be right up there in terms of 7th, maybe vying for 6th, because they finished 9th this season. They were 1 point off Leicester, just looking over at the table, and they were only 5 points off West Ham, who finished 7th. The extra goals here and there, they could be doing quite well. Their goal difference was -2. Their defense was just as good as Wolves, who I thought was decent this season. Slightly better than Palace's. It was better than Arsenal's. It was close to Spurs's. Or not close to... Was it close? Yeah, it was close to Spurs'. It was much better than Man United's for sure. They just need consistent goals up front. If they can do that, they should be well on their way to looking at potential European places. And Graham Potter's done a fantastic job. Now, for some reason, I skipped over 11th because I can't count, and I went to 10th. So let's see who I put in 10th. And I think this is one of my worst picks, I think. I'm going to keep it the same. There it is. And the reason I think Arsenal is going to be 10th is because they have no European football, but they have no real identity. But their quality of players are slightly better, which means I think they'll probably beat teams like Brighton and Wolves and Newcastle and Crystal Palace and Brentford and Burnley more times than not. But on the odd occasion, they'll play against Brentford, they'll play against Burnley, they'll play against Norwich, they'll play against Watford, and they'll probably draw when they shouldn't have, or they might lose when they shouldn't have. But I think overall, their players are decent enough to where they can get around a mid-table finish. And I think, me personally, I think it's potentially the manager that doesn't really have an idea with what he wants to do with the team. And it kind of seemed that way, at least in the first few games. It didn't look great for Arsenal. They had a fantastic run, and I hope that documentary is going to come out, because it went right down to the last day, technically, even though we kind of knew Spurs was going to beat Norwich. But that's going to be very interesting to see if the documentary does come out, the All or Nothing series, because the Spurs one was brilliant, the Man City one was brilliant as well. And I think that with the likes of Arsenal's youngsters, so the Smith Rowes, the Martinellis, the Sakas, they just need some type of like a couple of key players, a man up front, another man in midfield alongside Thomas Partey, and then potentially a proper fullback that they can rely on week in, week out, because it seems like Tomiyasu has some injury issues. Tierney has definite injury issues over the past as well. We could see a situation where Arsenal could be banging on that top 4 door, even more so than what they were this season. Even though technically they were only 1 game away, they could just cement themselves. Maybe Chelsea don't get things right, and they can leapfrog them. Who knows? They still have the skeleton there. I still think there's questions about Arteta, who's gotten, I think it was 8th, 5th. I think if he doesn't finish in the top 4, for me, he would have to go personally. And they spent the most money last summer as well. So, again, just something to potentially, question on him as well. So, yeah, let's do 9th and 8th and then 11th. I forgot how to count. So, let's go to who I put in 9th place. And I think this is another bad one as well.
9th place, we're going to go with Leeds United. Marcelo Bielsa continuing to maintain his same style, the 3-1-3-3 or the 4-1-4-1, whatever you would like to call it. He's going to still play the same old. He's adding a couple extra players. Junior Firpo's come in. Rafinha's still there. Llorente should be back for the majority of the season, as he was out injured for...
Yeah, and you just heard it, just as I paused it there. Out injured. That was basically Leeds' season. Bamford was out for long term. Firpo was out constantly. Llorente and Cooper were out. Ayling was out. Dallas had a bad injury as well. Even Rafinha wasn't at his best and had a couple games out here and there. Leeds had some serious problems. Leeds are basically a championship team that have a couple good Premier League quality players, like the likes of Rodrigo, Bamford, and Rafinha. I would probably say maybe Llorente as well if they can stay fit. But again, it's if they can stay fit. And I think that Leeds are in trouble right from the off. I don't think Jesse Marsch helped them at all. I think he just kind of steadied the ship a little bit for the most part. Got a bit fortunate that Burnley couldn't pull it together on the last day because they were going down, even with the win. And it wasn't in their hands. They would like to be more comfortable. I think Leeds being in the Premier League is good in terms of the brand of football that they do play. Jesse Marsch kind of played a slightly more defensive version of what Marcelo Bielsa played, who did play his style until he basically left the club, which is ultimately what caused them to get battered basically by everyone, because they just kept getting opened up and they had no defenders fit. That's kind of what the issue was. Then they struggled to put the ball in the back of the net because you had to rely on the likes of Harrison, Dan James, who are just out and out wingers for the most part. Rafinha could score goals, but again, not really ideal. And Rodrigo wasn't always necessarily fit, so he couldn't even play that role. So again, very, very weird with Leeds, just barely staying up. They need investment desperately. I think there's still questions about Meslier as well. Young goalkeeper, made a lot of mistakes. The defense needs shoring up. They need to do something there over in kind of the period where they need to kind of assess who is going to be basically marshalling that defense, because Llorente and Cooper, injury wise, the record's not good at all. So they need someone who's going to be a stalwart, going to play 30 plus games for them and get them solid again, and someone who could probably play out from the back. So it Leeds is going to be a bit of a tricky one. So I don't know where I'm going to put them in my predictions come for next season predictions. But let's see who I put in 8th place. So I was way off on that one. So hopefully I can get this one slightly better. Let's see, 17-ish.
Out from the European places, and I think that's gonna be West Ham. I think if they don't bring in another forward to help back up Antonio and maybe leave some of his duties up front, I think Europe's gonna probably hurt them a little bit. And this is no slight on West Ham. They came 6th last season. I think a slight regression is probably on the cards, but I think their squad is still good enough to do well in the league. If they get knocked out of one of the, one of the early stages of the Europa League, I wouldn't be surprised. Similar to how Leicester kind of bowed out as well. I just think their squad's just not deep enough, especially up front. And I just think that they could struggle a little bit when European football comes around. They may start off well. I think the fixtures are good enough to start off well. I think David Moyes has them playing some good football. And I think the fans will help them out a little bit. Now, if it had been a season ago, the fans would have been all over their back. And that's a good point there. The fans were, West Ham is massive, all that sort of stuff. It was Mark Noble's last season as well. Been a long servant of the club. And I think that West Ham are in a very good place. I was one place off prediction-wise. They ended up finishing 7th rather than 8th. And Europe did kind of hurt them in the league for a bit. And it also showed once they got to the later stages when they didn't have the likes of Ogbonna, who had a season-ending injury. They had Cresswell suspended a couple times in the competition. And they just needed defensive reinforcement. Kurt Zouma, who had his off-field issues, which we don't need to talk about, but also had his own injury record, which wasn't great either. So then you had just basically Craig Dawson and whoever else they could find at center back. So I think West Ham need to address that situation. I'm actually surprised that Antonio was able to play the amount of games that he did. I think he tailed off significantly. I think Ben Rama's, not being included in the squad was really weird. It just seems like after African Cup of Nations, he just wasn't played to the extent that he was when he started the season really well. I remember a game of preseason versus Atalanta, which is the reason why I went with Ben Rama and Antonio in FPL. They just absolutely destroyed them. So I was like, okay, well, this looks great because West Ham's fixtures are, pretty good. So we'll go with it. I think they need some type of cover in that forward position as well to give Antonio the night, off sometimes, or maybe something just a bit different. From Antonio as well. And then center back and then goalkeeper. I think they're going to use Areola as the long-term goalkeeper at West Ham, so we'll see how that goes. And then Declan Rice. Could this be Declan Rice's last season at West Ham? Chelsea will probably have the financial backing properly going into next season. Not this one probably. But, if Chelsea come knocking at the door, I think Declan Rice is gone. So that could be a big miss for them as well. So they'll have to repair that hole. But I think West Ham 7th, very, very good season for them as well. Again, David Moyes, who wasn't even nominated, I don't think, for the manager of the year, definitely probably deserves it over Jurgen Klopp, who I'm not really sure how he got that based on just Premier League alone. It's really weird. Again, Eddie Howe and Pep Guardiola probably deserve it more than Klopp does, but again, that's just a weird kind of a choice there. But that's for a different discussion. But West Ham, I predicted 8th. Again, happy with the choice there. So far we've had Southampton, which was, again, they weren't that far off. 40 points, 35 points, was only 5-point gap there. In terms of the order, the only ones we've got really wrong is Leeds and Arsenal. So we're doing really good so far. We've also got the relegation points tally kind of correct with the prediction, as well as the first manager's hacked. So let's see who we put in 11th. I believe this one's not great. I think this one could be not great because for some reason I couldn't count. So who did I put in 11th? 4 slots here,
right.
Not 3, because I went 11th, 12th, 14th. I can't count really.
Yeah,
but 11th place I think is going to be Everton. And the reason I think that is because the fans don't really like Rafa Benitez.
They didn't.
Because he was a former Liverpool manager.
Exactly.
I think it's going to take a little bit of time based on what we saw in the preseason game versus United to get that defensive solidity. But I think they'll be around mid-table. They might be higher than Arsenal, but again, I put this a few days ago. I'm just going to cut that one right off there. Everton signing Rafa Benitez was just, it was just basically adding poison to the chalice, and it was only a matter of time before something could go wrong. That's with hindsight, but at the time, I thought it was like, okay, well, maybe they can get past that. And then the reality was just like, no, you signed an ex-Liverpool manager who loves Liverpool, and Everton, they were doing okay off the start, but it just went south really quick. And once Rafa Benitez lost like 1 game, 2 games in a row, the fans immediately turned and never went back, basically. Then Frank Lampard comes in. Again, he's not stellar. He took them from, I think it was 15th to 16th. Ended up in this weird relegation battle where it looked like Everton, the team that was going to get this brand new stadium and all that sort of stuff, was going to get relegated, and they could be in trouble again. Richarlison might leave as well. There's been links with him leaving the club. Calvert-Lewin's just had fitness issues, and then you're just relying on a squad of players who they overpaid for and just aren't great, really, all things considered. So, yeah, definitely got that one completely wrong there as well. Let's take a look at how we picked for the final 7 teams in the league. So, around the 1950 mark. But for Conference League is Spurs. I think they're going to win the Conference League, and I think they're going to come 7th again. So they're going to be in it again.
7th?
If they don't win the Conference League, but I think they will win it. I think their team is definitely good enough. Even without Harry Kane, I think Son playing up front, Dele Alli, Lucas Moura, Brian Gill, who they've brought in as well. I think they could do quite well. I think the center backs is a bit of an issue with them. You know, they need to bring in probably another center back for me. I think Christian Romero is a good, very good signing. I think Joe Rodon is a very good young talent, but I think you just probably need someone a little bit better as a third alternative, as it were, that could potentially also be a starter. So basically, ideally, you want Romero and somebody with Rodon and somebody else. Well, they ended up bringing Antonio Conte because, just Nuno Espirito Santo just was not good at all. Playing at a back 3 is what Spurs ended up doing under Antonio Conte. Their January buys were potentially 2 of the best buys alongside Luis Diaz from Liverpool in top-flight football. Bentancur is a fantastic footballer, keeps it really simple, is very accurate with his passes, very tenacious in midfield, and Kulusevski is basically the same age as Bukayo Saka, and personally I think that Bukayo Saka is, yes, a fantastic player, but I think Kulusevski was better than him this season. Genuinely. I think that Kulusevski could be even better. Kulusevski also is in a team where he has to be more defensively aware, whereas Bukayo Saka has been known to, that's not necessarily the side of his game that he's necessarily great in unless put in a wingback role, which you'd kind of just be wasting him in that sense. So Kulusevski, Son, Kane, they all work really hard off the ball. The midfield works hard. The fullbacks work hard. Like Conte, if you aren't doing what Conte says, you can hear him over the comms of the commentators for any game, basically. So yeah, Spurs 7th. They ended up coming 4th, so a very good season there. So a bit of a miss there. Conference League, I think they got booted out of that because of the fact that they had a bunch of positive cases in the camp, so they kind of just forfeited the game and they ended up not going through or something of that nature. So that was kind of a bit of a weird one. But I think had the Conte come in, they might have ended up winning it because I think it was fairly weak throughout until like the last 4. So I think they might have been okay in that one. They would actually probably end up playing like Roma or something like that. So it would have been interesting to play Jose Mourinho again. But Jose does what Jose wants and just wins European competitions. So yeah, wasn't that bad of a shout. I think that one was okay. But I think my next one is definitely out there. So let's see what I predicted for 6th place. In 6th place, this is probably what my biggest, kind of upset, as it were. I think Aston Villa are going to come 6th place. Now, this may seem crazy because they lost Jack Grealish. They end up finishing 11th place. But I think the money that they've spent on other players, the likes of Danny Ings, Emi Buendia, Leon Bailey, I think is fantastic business. And I'm going to stop you right there, Pilot, because on paper they were, but Buendia came in, was a bit part player basically, with the fact that Coutinho came in as well. You had Leon Bailey, who is just constantly injured and is a bit of a problem. Danny Ings, they just couldn't find a system that consistently worked with him and Watkins. I thought that they were going to put Watkins out on the left and Danny Ings through the middle, which might have worked, but just couldn't get it right. And I think Gerrard needs to get it right next season too. I think he's in a very similar boat to Lampard. Both of them not proven by any stretch of the imagination at Premier League level. Lampard less so in terms of his previous managerial jobs outside the Premier League with Derby, and with Gerrard over at Rangers doing a fantastic job. But again, the Premier League is a completely different. That was an outside pick. It went horribly wrong. Aston Villa finished 14th. That's probably my worst pick out of all of them. Them and Leeds, probably, and Arsenal to an extent. But yeah, we're gonna swiftly move past that, and let's talk about who I put in 5th place, because I think this one was a lot of people probably thought this was probably going to go better as well. And I think 6th place is probably about right. In 5th place, unfortunately, not making it, once again, the bridesmaid, never the bride, unfortunately, is going to be Leicester City. And that's through no fault of their own. Their business has been quite good. The likes of Sumari, the likes of Ryan Bertrand from Southampton. They've done good business. Patson Daka could be a long-term replacement. The likes of Jamie Vardy. He was very good when Vardy I think they could do very well this season. I just think the top 4 clubs, the Cities, the Leicester, the Liverpool, the Chelseas. Yeah, so Leicester had a very, very weird season. Like, I mean, from set pieces, they couldn't defend a set piece if there was no players on the other team. Like, that's how bad they were at set pieces. They were really, really shocking on set pieces. And that may be because of the loss of Vestergaard, just that height and presence in the box to be able to clear things efficiently. They need to address that somehow in the offseason. I think that they need to hold on to Tielemans if they can. I think he's kind of crucial for them, the way their midfield wants to function. If Brendan Rodgers wants to go for that pivot. Vardy does have a long-term replacement. If they can get another year or 2 out of him, then that'd be great. And they just need to have players fit. Maddison staying fit means Leicester play well. Leicester only actually ended up finishing 8th this season. They were down 14th, 15th at points, but it wasn't that bad of a shout. I also predicted them to, later on in the video, to be the Europa League winners. They actually ended up doing, kind of okay in Europa League. I think they got to the final 8 or final 4, so I think they did a decent job there, so not too bad on that prediction. I just think that Leicester need to get back to what they did well, which was basically soak up the pressure a little bit, defend well, and hit teams on the break. If they can do that well, which they didn't do last season, the likes of Maddison, who can receive the ball on the turn, head up, look for Daka, look for Vardy, look for Barnes, these sorts of players. Leicester can hurt teams. They have the quality to do that. It's just about keeping them fit and about basically, because if you can't get the ball to go to Maddison because you've already conceded because the ball's gone in the back of your own net because of poor defending set piece wise, then you're going to have a bit of issues. And I think that's why they were less potent, I think, on the counterattack, because that identity was basically stripped away from them because the amount of set pieces that they did concede, so, or at least looked very, very shaky on. Let's go to my prediction for, because I did the Champions League as well. Let's see who I predicted to be the Champions League winners. It's around 24-40-ish. Trophies. So the first trophy we're going to talk about is the Champions League. And I think the Champions League is going to go to PSG. I just think Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, Donnarumma in goal. You have a back line of Bernard, Hakimi, Ramos, Marquinhos, or something like that, with a midfield of Wijnaldum and Verratti. I mean, it's just getting a bit silly now. It's probably one of... I mean, their team on paper is actually ridiculous. There was reason for it. I mean, PSG, they just collapsed to Real Madrid. Real Madrid beat the 4 probably best other teams in the competition, genuinely. They beat all of them. They beat Liverpool, they beat Chelsea, they beat Man City, they beat PSG. Rightful winners of the trophy. They outplayed Liverpool in the final. Yes, Liverpool had all these shots and that sort of stuff, but again, like, Ancelotti knew what he was doing. He's like, I'll rely on Courtois. Courtois will make some good saves for us, and we keep ourselves in it. We get the 1 or 2 chances, and I mean, Real Madrid could have ended that game 3-0. They had 2 chances on the break later on after they were already up 1-0, and Liverpool... There's been times this season where we've seen them. They just can't break through teams that sit back. They struggle versus Chelsea. They did it in both cup final competitions. They did it in the 2 games that they played. Liverpool struggled to beat Chelsea with 10 men when Reece James had the handball early on in the Premier League season. So I think that Real Madrid were the winners. And I think just PSG's collapse was just... I mean, I don't know how that's even possible. So, again, a decent shout, but, again, didn't come through. Then I moved on to 3rd place because for some reason the United fan in me thought that making this decision was smart. So I'm going to skip to who I predicted in 3rd place. That is going to be Manchester United. So I think Man United is going to come 3rd place. And I also think that Man United is going to pick up the FA Cup as well. I just have a funny feeling that Man United are going to be able to see that Arsenal are in a bit of turmoil, and then maybe think we can catch them up in FA Cups, or at least, in a bit of turmoil, right? Yeah, let's flip that one around.
Now, granted, to be fair, Ronaldo, Varane, Sancho come into a team that came second. Me, with my kind of bias hat on, says, we're going to win the league. Me, with my logical hat on, says, last season there was no fans. That makes a big difference. And United often played pretty average at home when the fans piled the pressure on. And we saw that this season. And then our waveform went out the window because the, opposing fans were gearing up their teams to get them to go on and get the winner. So, not the end of the world for the shout, but FA Cup winners, I think United, didn't. I think we got knocked out by, I think it was Forest actually in the end of it, that we got knocked out by. Who ended up beating Arsenal as well. United came sixth, so again 3 places off. Still ahead of Aston Villa and ahead of Leicester, but not ahead of the likes of Spurs and Arsenal, because they got those wrong way around as well. So, yeah, I'm not sure what I was thinking. I think these are probably some of my worst predictions, actually, funny enough, which you would think would be the easiest. Just pick the obvious ones, but let's see. So, who did I put in 4th place? I think this one was a bad shout, but again, I'll say my explanation afterwards. United fans want more? Of course. But I think that would be an improvement on last season. In 4th place, and I think they're going to be trophyless, unfortunately, this season, is going to be Liverpool. They brought in Konate, who's a fantastic signing, although he is injury-prone, and has shown to be injury-prone in the past. He's a very young talent, but could be fantastic. Van Dijk and Gomez, we just don't know what we're going to get from them. Although, what Liverpool have been doing this summer is they've been tying down all of their key assets. So they did tie down all of their key assets, apart from their 3 attackers, which is Mane, Salah, and Firmino. And the likes of Diaz has come in. Jota's been very good. But Mane might leave. And it's looking like he's going to leave. He said apparently he put like a poll to the Senegalese people, like, should I stay or should I go? And they're like, yeah, you should go. So he's going to do that probably. But let me say my explanation for why Liverpool was potentially going to be trophyless and fourth, and when they were looking to potentially be on for the quadruple. It's because they had all those injuries, and some of them were quite serious injuries. So Joe Gomez had this pretty much same injury as Van Dijk did. We didn't know how they were both going to come back. They both came back and were excellent. Plain and simple. Konate, fantastic in Europe as well. Very, very good. I thought he had an excellent final in the Champions League, by the way, as well. Trent and Robertson were very good throughout the season, but when it came to crunch time, kind of underperformed there a little bit. And in the cup competitions, Liverpool didn't actually score a goal in any of the finals. They scored 0 goals in all of the finals. Apart from, obviously, the penalties and stuff in the 2 domestic cups. So, yeah, I definitely would expect Liverpool to potentially retain that. We'll have to see what the situation with Mane is and how they kind of shake things up, because I think Diaz is one of the best signings of the season. So we'll see how that one goes. But that was a bit of a kind of a safety precaution prediction because of the fact that we don't know what we're going to get from them given all the injuries that they did have. And with United signing who they did, Chelsea getting Lukaku, which we'll talk about in a bit, and Man City being Man City, I expected them to kind of be down a little bit and then make their way back up again. So bit of naivety there. So who did I put in 2nd place? Probably not the one I should have. Let's see. Probably going to shock you. This is probably going to shock you. I put City second, don't I? Man City are going to come second. Oh, no. I think Man City are going to come 2nd place, and I think they're going to win the Carabao Cup because it's just a trophy that their squad, because it comes around, I think it's around February time when the competition basically ends. Around that time, they just finished the win. Well, they could have potentially got to the Carabao Cup final, but they ended up losing to Liverpool because I think that was when Stefan made a mistake. What was that, the FA Cup? I can't remember. It was one of the semi-finals where basically Liverpool went full strength. City rotated a bit, and they ended up losing because Stefan made a mistake, and it just weren't at the races there. But yeah, so I think I'm going to nail it right now. Man City are going to win the league next season. I'm going to predict that. And if they don't win it, I would be definitely shocked probably, but especially now that they have Holland. So if I don't predict Man City to win the league next season, spam me in the comments and say you promise that you're going to predict Man City to win the season next season. So yeah, that was a bit of an oversight. And then of course I picked Chelsea to win the league. Who again, European Cup winners.
did quite well. Thomas Tuchel did quite well. But again, the whole kind of sanctions with Roman Abramovich and that sort of stuff, and the whole takeover, that kind of caused things to be a bit kind of all over the place. I think it potentially took some focus off what the actual prize was, which was doing well in Europe. You know, Chelsea definitely had a chance to knock out Real Madrid and progress in the Champions League. They had a chance to beat Liverpool in 2 separate domestic finals. I think Chelsea's season was very good, at least from a you know, how they kind of went about this season with the kind of, you know, dark cloud of the takeover and sanctions and all that sort of stuff that needed to happen. However, the big failure, who I think I predicted to win the Golden Boot, actually, let's see if I did, was Romelu Lukaku. Let me see, who did I predict to win the Golden Boot? Possibly to the last day, but I think Chelsea with Lukaku now will nick it. And actually, I'm going to pick Lukaku to be the Golden Boot winner outright. I think I predicted Timo Werner last season, so I'm not picking a Chelsea player to win the Golden Boot. Haaland's winning the Golden Boot next season. That's who I'm going to predict. I'm going to pick Matt. I'm going to just go generic, just kind of blah, and just go with that. But yeah, that was a terrible choice. Lukaku just did not hit the ground running. Had Reece James and Chilwell stayed fit, I think they would have gotten more out of Lukaku, whether it would have been like vintage Romelu Lukaku, like how he played at Inter Milan or when he played at Everton. Would have been something different there, but we'll see. He looks like he's probably going to move anyway, but we'll have to see kind of how they can work that deal, because they spent a fortune for him. Inter need money, basically, so how they're going to work that out, I'm not too sure. And Lautaro Martinez could be one of the players that did leave, and if they did get rid of him, that was kind of Lukaku's strike partner. So let's see who I put as Young Player of the Year and Player of the Year. Those 2 final things left to do. And then for the Players of the Year, so the Young Player of the Year, in my opinion, is going to be Jadon Sancho. I think he's going to be fantastic for United, and I think he's going to have a stellar season. It could be a very good FPL asset at 9.5 million. And then lastly, I think the Player of the Season, although they might not win the Premier League, but to win the Carabao Cup, I think it's just going to go to Kevin De Bruyne. I think if City are even in and around it by the time it comes to the end of the season, I think De Bruyne could be absolutely fantastic. Now, if Lukaku scores 30 plus goals, I think he could definitely win it as well.
No chance.
But I think De Bruyne just always seems to kind of win it because De Bruyne is that good. So I was right on that one with the Player of the Year. Young Player of the Year, not so much. So overall, not terrible predictions. I think Man City, being 1 position off isn't bad. I think probably the howlers of this are Aston Villa in 6th, Arsenal in 10th, Everton being mid-table and being stabilized, quote-unquote, on Rafa Benitez. But then some of the good picks, the relegation picks that we had, the order of the bottom half of the table, at least. Predicting the Player of the Year was also good as well as the relegation points tally. So overall, some good, some bad. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. We're going to be doing one of these videos the week leading up to the first game of the 22-23 season. So make sure to check out that one as well as all the other FPL content is going to be going on the channel. Next week, Monday, hopefully, I'm going to release a video where I'm going to go over the prices of the goalkeepers last season and go over what I think they're going to be this season, and just overall discussion of price changes. We'll be doing videos on Mondays and Fridays. And I'm going to try to see if I can squeeze in a video about Man United and how to fix their transfer strategy for this offseason, how they can get it right, and what they need and what they don't need, and who they need to get rid of, and what is more realistic given the current situation as well. So make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a comment down below. Did you get your predictions right? Did you get your predictions wrong? Do you have some early predictions? I'd love to see them as well. But I know one thing's for certain. I'm predicting Man City first next season. I can't get that one wrong because that's the most likely thing to happen as well. And I'm not picking another Chelsea player to win the Golden Boot. But that's going to do it for my 2021-22 prediction reactions. Yeah, during the regular season, it's £25 for the membership, and that lasts the entire year. And during the off season, they give a 20% discount. But if you have missed that discount, fear not, you can still get the membership for £25, and it's fantastic. You can see the membership area just behind me. You have a bunch of different stats that you can use, powered by Opta stats, and create your own custom tables. You have the Rate My Team tool, you have the season ticker, player comparison tools, a whole array of things that you can use to help elevate your FPL game. So use the link down in the description below so that you can get access to these exclusive tools to help elevate your FPL game. Sign up now. And that's going to do it for our EPL, our Premier League 21-22 season review of my predictions. As you saw, I didn't get a few of them, right at all, like completely missed the mark on those. So hopefully we can do better. So next time I will be doing those the week before the season starts. So this will be after the Charity Shield and probably somewhere in the week leading up to the first game of the Premier League season. So make sure to tune in for that. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn the notification bells on so you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. We're doing some postseason videos as well with some price change predictions. We'll be looking at some price reactions when they do come out, as well as other videos which will break down for each team. As well as make sure to give us a follow over on Twitter so you can see these updates when I'll be posting them, because I might give you like a little small schedule once we have that stuff kind of more in line when we know FPL is going to get launched. As well as give us a follow over on Twitch so you can see when we do go live, or when FPL does get launched. We will be going live that evening, and we'll be going probably for over an hour, looking at prices, all that sort of stuff, and doing our first draft. So make sure to keep logged in for that. As well as use the link down in the description so you can get 20% off your Manscaped order using the code FLAME20. It will help for myself, and it'll also help you. You get free worldwide shipping as well, which is always great. And yeah, it's fantastic products, and hopefully it can help during the summer as well, when things get a little bit hairy in the summertime when it's hot and sticky. So make sure to check out Manscaped. They have a bunch of different great products, so check them out. Thank you all for watching, and until the next one, take care.